I'm going to reveal how old I am in this sermon today, and I expect you all to be kind. You see, I'm so old, I remember when Saturday Night Live was still funny. And there was a skit there that Billy Crystal did. I think the guy's name was Armando. And he had this great catchphrase, "You look marvelous, darling." And he followed it up with, you know, it's more important to look good than it is to feel good. Well, I'm not sure that's true. The older I get, feeling good is really nice. But there is something here, folks. Even psychologists tell us that there is a psychological, I don't want to call it a trick, but a method that you can do to get out of a rut in your life. And it's called visualization. You're encouraged to visualize what it would be like if you were over this hump, or what it would be like to win this game, what it would be like to overcome this habit, what it would be like to achieve this goal. And you're supposed to visualize it in your head. Think of yourself as already there. And that's supposed to boost your encouragement and give you strength to go forward and so on and so forth. And so this concept of visualization is a psychological insight into we humans. The fact is, it's not a new idea. Shakespeare himself said, the eyes were the windows to the soul. And that great Orthodox theologian from the 60s, what you see is what you get. And 1,000 other cute little quips that we know. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And all of these other ideas that we have, our power of sight is extremely important. And the reason for that is, ladies and gentlemen, is because if you see yourself as you really are, if you ever have the courage to do that, St. Basil said that the greatest fear of any human is to stare into the abyss of his own soul. If you were to ever really truly see yourself as you really are and avoid the twin mistakes that all of us make most of the time of either being too easy on myself or too hard on myself, if you were to ever develop the discipline to be able to look at yourself dispassionately with an honesty that reveals who you really are, St. Basil says you would begin to know who God is. Think about this for a moment. If I could truly see myself as I really am, I would begin to understand the fact that I am created in the image of God to be made into His likeness. If I were to really be able to have the courage to see myself as I really am, not as the caricature that I create for myself, the clown or the bumbling fool or the capable businessman, whatever facade we all might create about ourselves, if I were to have the courage to lay that aside and look at myself as I really am, have that kind of courage, have that kind of humility, have that kind of wisdom. St. Basil says, and I think he's right, that I would begin to know who God is because each of us in this room is created in the image of God. Now, that word image is extremely important for us today in our Orthodox faith. Look at our gospel lesson today. I love this story of Nathaniel. Nathaniel's cool. I like Nathaniel. Nathaniel's an honest man. That's the reason why Jesus said, "Behold an Israelite in whom is no guile." That's an old way of saying, this boy's a straight shooter. He tells the truth. This boy is an honest man. And Nathaniel says, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? Because he knows Nazareth is notorious for being a place where there's half-breeds and all kinds of foolishness going on. And Philip says to the famous phrase that I've told so many inquirers I can't even count anymore, come and see. We found the Messiah, Nathanael. Really? Yeah, he's Jesus from Nazareth. Can any good thing come out of Nazareth? Come find out for yourself. And then, of course, Jesus greets him, and we read the whole story about Jesus says, I saw you when you were under the fig tree before Nathanael came and got you. And that blows Nathanael's mind, and he says, he immediately switches. Well, apparently something good can come out of Nazareth. This is the King of Israel. This is the Messiah. He's the fella. And Jesus says, you mean to tell me you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? If I was translating the scriptures, this is the way I would translate it. You know what Jesus said, boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. In fact, Nathanael, you're going to see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. That's an incredible statement. That's a powerful statement. And all of this leads us to the power of image, the power of knowing myself, the power of having the courage and embracing timeless wisdom that teaches me the disciplines, how to come to know myself in a way that is dispassionate, without the shame that makes me run and hide, or without the blind and undeserved arrogance that makes me puff up my chest and pretend I'm something I'm not. Both of those foolish places will never take you to spiritual maturity, nor to who you really are. And so this morning, we're going to discover the power of image. Today is the Sunday of the victory of the Orthodox faith after over 100 years of fighting over icons. The church had been beset by heretics who had said, no icons. Icons are idolatry. But after 100 years of fighting and many martyrs, the church restored the holy icons to the church for theological reasons. And brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are Orthodox and those who are not Orthodox, I appreciate all of you being here today. I'm grateful that you're here, but understand that this is not open for discussion. It's not an opinion. Icons and imagery is necessary since the fact that the invisible God became visible in human flesh for us to ever really begin to discipline our souls so that I can see myself. Without them, I run the risk of locking my theology away in my cranium and leaving my theology always in the realm of thought and idea rather than the practical expression and reality of living it on a daily basis. This is what is at stake about icons. Some may say, oh, well, Father, you're one of those guys, you like smells and bells, and I like the praise band and the smoke machine and all that kind of stuff. You know, you say tomato, I say tomato. Dog bones. That might have been true had we not had a clear and consistent pattern of worship and prayer for 20 centuries that didn't care what culture it was in, it didn't care what languages it was in, it didn't care what eon it was in, it didn't care what the educational level of the people were in. The consistent practice of the church for 20 centuries is to use icons to assist and reinforce two truths. God really did become visible, and you're never going to look like him until you stare at him. There's a great story about St. John of Shanghai, who every day found himself, his acolytes and his servants constantly found him standing in the church, standing in front of the icon of Christ. And he'd stand there for hours. In fact, that's where they found him passed away. When he passed away, he was kneeling in front of the icon of Christ. Man didn't even fall over. He just died. And one day, somebody asked him, Father John, what are you doing? He said, you're standing in front of this icon of Christ all the time. What are you doing? And he said, well, I look at him, and he looks at me. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the power of image is the power of an unrestrained honesty and courage to know who you really are. The old 50s song says it really great. To know him is to love him. And the only way to know him, dear ones, is to gaze at his face and get his image imprinted on your mind. Oh, but Father, how do you know that's what Jesus looks like? I know good and well that the Lord looks very much like that, from the Shroud of Turin to the constancy of the imagery that has come through the ages. Very close. But it's purposely skewed. The nose is thin. The ears are diminished. The mouth is small. The eyes are big. Because, dear ones, what you let into your eyes gets in your heart. If you're ever going to know yourself, if you're ever going to have the courage of an adult, you're going to have to put aside the false images that you have of yourself, whether it's good or bad or indifferent. The path of self-esteem isn't going to help you. Self-help books may be wonderful for a moment, but they're just like a little shot and then they wear off about 2 or 3 days later. The only consistent way for you to escape the prison of either feeling horrible about yourself or feeling unduly good about yourself, coming to a place where you actually see yourself as you really are, is to get an image in your mind of what a true human looks like. Here it is. And begin to use the power of the gift of sight to Christianize your image of yourself. To Christianize what you allow your eyes to see. To Christianize what you allow your mind to dwell on. To Christianize what you allow your hands to do, where you allow your feet to take you. All of this hinges on an unwavering truth that God really has become flesh and visible for our sake, so that we might become by grace what Christ is by nature. And it all hinges on the fact that we do not reject the visible. The greatest truth is, as beautiful as all of these icons are, they are simply reflections. You are the true icon of God in your world. You are made in the image of God to be transformed into His likeness. You should not waste one more second of your life investing it in anything less than that eternal goal. And the wisdom of the faith through 20 centuries of consistent practice offers you a storehouse and a tool of medicine that will answer every question, that will heal every disease, and that will give you the grace to become what Christ is by nature. And it all begins on the courage to come and see.